welcome to Behind the Drapes, Episode 2, where we take a look into what goes on in the minds of event entrepreneurs and take a deep dive into the lives of the people that make things happen. Coming to you from the Expo studio in Miami, I'm your host, Expo Rich. And with us today is our guest and a longtime friend of mine. She has some South Florida roots, but for the past quite a few years now, she's been killing it in New York City. Welcome to the show. Founder, CEO of GTSE, which is Global Tourism, Sports and Entertainment, Luisa Mendoza.
Hello, Rich. So good to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here and making the trip. People aren't traveling much these days, but I was glad to be able to take advantage of your South Florida trip and get you in here. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, and our history is just to kind of go over that is so we worked together on a lot of things at the Fort Lauderdale Convention Center. Luisa spent some years there in sales, and us and our team as servicing conventions and trade shows. So it was always great working with you, for those years, and it's great that we were able to stay in touch for the years after. So is it 11 years already?
10 years this year.
10 years
Yep.
since you've been out of South Florida.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
2001, I moved to New York, so this is my 10th year anniversary being up in New York.
2011.
2011,
Okay.
yes, sorry.
That's all right. I was like, oh, that long? No, so
2011, yes.
yeah, it's funny too because it really doesn't feel like it's been that long.
No.
It's just, and I guess that's the advantage of having social media, staying connected. We see each other's kids, and we were able to just like stay in line with each other. And then when we're together like this in person, it's like we didn't miss a beat. So
Couldn't agree more.
it's great. So one of the things I like to talk about with the guests is, first of all, being an entrepreneur, having your own business, things that there's always an origin of that hustle and that drive. And I love to know the backstory of where that comes from. So if you could kind of elaborate on where your drive comes from and where the hustle comes from that made you motivated to create your own business.
I love that question. So we moved to the United States, to Miami, when I was 4 years old. My parents gave up everything, careers, family, culture. My father was in his 50s, my mom was in her 40s, and moving to the United States as immigrants, although in Colombia, my father was a promotion away from becoming the president at the bank where he worked at.
Wow.
And overnight, we moved to the United States, and I see my mom and my dad cleaning houses and offices for a living. And so for me, as a little girl, I quickly saw the sacrifice because I saw my parents dressing up to go to work in Colombia, and here they were cleaning houses. Yeah. So for me, that was such a symbol of sacrifice. So moving here, we didn't have much. Right. We had very little. Our first dining room table was a cardboard box.
Wow.
Talk about humble beginnings. And so I love that question because I was around 5 years old, and it was Mother's Day, and I wanted to get my mom a gift for Mother's Day. So I had some dolls and books, and I put them in a box, not the cardboard box. That was not the dining room table. But I grabbed all the dolls and the books, and I put them in this box, and I just went door to door selling it to my neighbors, like, hey, I'm trying to make some money to buy my mom a gift for Mother's Day.
Oh, and no one could say no to that.
And they were like, keep the doll, and here's $10. So it was like 100% profit. I was like, I love sales. And so that's where the grit, the hustle started at a very young age, knowing that due to financial circumstances, if I wanted certain things, I had to hustle. Right. And that's how I helped pay for my Sweet 15. I sold candy at school. And then when I wanted to buy my first car, I went to get a job at Sawgrass Mills Mall and saved up $10,000, making $6.25 an hour back then.
Exactly.
If that. And it was $375 a week I used to make, I remember. And so it was like hustling school, then going to work, my dad picking me up, doing homework late at night, and then all over again the next day. So it's part of my DNA to hustle, to work, and that I'm grateful for it, because I guess that's the drive that pushed me when I saw an opportunity to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it definitely seeing it firsthand, having a great example of your parents being, very, with hard work ethic, and, that's fantastic. And where was the origin? We said Colombia. What's
Bogota.
Got to give a shout out to the Bogota. So,
Woo-hoo!
so, yeah, we're excited to, speaking of Colombia, get back to our offices there in Medellin. We
Love Medellin.
Yeah,
Big shout out to them.
we had, what was it, 2018, we opened an office there. We had some team members that were from there moving back there, and there's a whole opportunity down there in South America that we want to continue to explore, but obviously quite a pause on it for this past year or so.
Yes, the great pause.
But yeah, Colombia is fantastic. So yeah, and so now you, so after your origin, your parents, really embedded you in a hard work and your hustle, and I love that you saved up $10,000 for your first car. I saved up $1,400 for my first truck. So you probably had a significantly nicer first car than I did. So.
I had a Chrysler Sebring convertible.
Oh, wow. So,
yeah, I was definitely top down.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I had a piece of crap 82 Ford pickup. But I would say, though, like with open campus at lunchtime, everybody would pile
You were
in the
the
back.
cool kid.
Yeah, I had like 15 people in the back of my truck going to lunch. So it was fun. Back when it wasn't frowned upon. So, after what originally got you in the events industry? Like how did you find your way to getting into the sales?
So talk about making one decision that will change your life forever. When I was in high school, the National Academy Foundation, which originated in New York, with Sandy Wiles, when he was the chairman of American Express, he saw a whole bunch of high school students just hanging out after school, and he had such a demand for staff.
Right.
So he was like, wait, if I could get high school students to intern for me after school, this could be a huge win-win opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I actually, at the time, there at my school, Plantation High School in Plantation, Florida, they had the Academy of Finance, the Academy of Hospitality and Tourism.
Oh, wow.
And for me, it was the Academy of Hospitality and Tourism that really stood out because of two reasons. One, the teacher, Ms. Bruni,
Right.
just really connected with her. Talk about how a teacher can impact your
Definitely.
life, right? Like
Yeah.
this woman changed the destiny of my life.
Yeah.
And then I joined the Academy of Hospitality and Tourism because also I felt like tourism and travel was something that just really, there was something about it that I was really drawn to it. So I joined the Academy of Hospitality and Tourism, and it changed my life because in order to graduate from the high school program, I had to do an internship.
Oh, okay.
And there I had to, they were doing a fundraiser for the Academy program, and we had to talk about how were we gonna raise money. So I shared my story about my parents' humble beginning, and they're like, you need to share the story of how a mentor could impact your life. And so I shared my story in a room of 100 CEOs, general managers, directors of sales in the hospitality industry in Fort Lauderdale. Back then, I think it was the Marina Marriott, it was the Marriott, or that was right across the convention center.
Right.
Which then became, I believe, the Renaissance. I mean, that hotel has gone through a few names. And so I just remember sharing my story and asking all of these people in the room to close their eyes for a moment and envision with me that tomorrow they had to leave the United States and we were going to China because that's where the Chinese dream was, right? Right. American dream. And they had to leave their careers, everything behind. And it was all for the sacrifice of their young daughter. Right. And I was like, open up your eyes. That is the story of my life. And that's what my parents did. Wow. And so that day, somebody that you and I know very well together, Mark Gatley,
Mark, yeah. I
love
know.
him. Oh my goodness, one of my angels in this world. He was there and he was like, I am so touched by your story. My mom was with me. He came to both of us. He goes, if there is anything I can
This
help
is
you
while you're
with,
still in high school?
this is while I'm in high school.
Okay.
He goes, if I can ever help you with anything, here's my business card, and just please stay in touch. So I took that business card and
Yeah,
I was
for
like,
sure.
I need an internship and I
Yeah.
would have loved to come work for you. And so that's how it all started. A
Ah.
high school program that allowed me to do an internship at the Broward County Convention Center. I fell in love with the industry
Yeah.
right away. I mean, working at the convention center, not only the leadership of Mark Gatley, one of the greatest bosses I've ever worked for, a man who's so humble, who puts his staff first, who I'll like never forget when we had these huge conventions that we had to like go from theater style for thousands of people to then converting it in 2 hours for a luncheon in
Yeah.
the exhibit halls. And it was like all hands on deck. And there he was rolling up his sleeve,
Yeah.
taking off his,
For sure.
you know,
I've seen it firsthand.
Yep.
And yeah, in the 21 years, I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about that guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he's incredible.
and so he was the one that gave me a shot at this. I interned directly with Tui Wong.
Yeah.
So she was my direct boss at the time. And, you know, the rest is history. Just really fell in love with what hospitality and tourism was. And then the cool thing is that he kicked me out. He's like, okay, now you need to go learn the rest of the industry. And I was like, but I want to work here.
Yeah.
And he's like, nope, you have to, I want you to get hotel experience. So I worked at the Hyatt Pier 66.
Okay.
As a PBX, I started off as a PBX, which people who are like, what is that? It's a telephone operator. So it's a beautiful day at the Hyatt Pier 66. This is Luisa. How may I direct your call? But these little skills that we learn in life of when you're talking on the phone, that a smile can be heard
Oh,
on the other
absolutely.
side. And we had these
Absolutely.
big mirrors, and it felt so cheesy to smile
Oh my
when you were
gosh, yeah.
picking up the phone. And then just worked my way through going back to the convention center as sales manager. And then my career, I had a huge opportunity to move to New York.
Yeah.
So that was,
Yeah, and it's fantastic that Mark was like such a rabbi for you to, it's like, I'm sure at one moment you were thinking, why are you releasing me? Why do you want me to go away? But not realizing that he's grooming you to come back with a whole nother skill set that's beneficial to their organization.
absolutely.
And to your own good, so.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, because being able to, having that experience at the hotels, at the Greater Fort Lauderdale Convention and Visitors Bureau, I really had a chance to understand in further detail how the whole industry was connected, and that it's a puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
One piece can't work without the other,
Yeah,
right?
for
If
sure.
we don't have the CVB promoting the destination, then we don't have the opportunity to bring these conventions
Right.
in. And if you don't have the hotels that can help and house everybody that comes in, so just like the
Yeah.
intricates of
And
our
if they're not
industry.
staying there, they're not eating there, and then, yeah,
Exactly,
definitely.
exactly.
Yeah, and then everybody else who gets the opportunity to sell services and sales, for car rentals, and yeah, it's such an ecosystem that is, and I love that in the past, it's really pretty recent, I wanna say like within the past 10 years, how much and how accurately it's been quantified, our economic impact of our
Oh.
industry on our US economy. And it was Sear and CISO and Woofy and all these alphabet soup of organizations that had to like really crunch all this data of, and then the other thing is about, within the past, like I said, within the past 10 years, people realizing how important it is to get their data on their groups, because, some people may have a convention or event and not want to impose, hotel blocks and things like that, but not realizing that without that data tracking, their own event is more valuable knowing that data.
Absolutely.
So whether it's a position in the city or just whether it's selling to a big sponsor, if a sponsor knows that, you are X amount of an economic impact and that is that many potential customers for them.
Yep.
So it's the era of data has been a benefit to our industry by
Absolutely.
leaps and bounds. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, and so then going through all the different departments within the industry. I mean, you literally have touched on almost all touch points, and which is fantastic. How would you say that it carried over? So that how did the live events industry help you? I mean, even though you're still in the live events industry, you're in global tourism and entertainment. So, but how would you say your experience working directly with the convention center has conveyed into your own entrepreneurship?
Oh my God. So I think one of the things that working at the convention center and being in the events industry that now more than ever has played a huge role in the success is that we are an industry that needs to pivot, quickly change. That's just the nature of the business, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like how quick can you get a show in and how quick can you get the show out? Because the next day it's a whole new thing.
For
So
sure.
I think mentally we are programmed that things don't stay the same.
That's
And
true.
that is such a blessing because, as we all know, during the pandemic, people had to pivot.
Right.
You could not stay staggered and just feeling that how I've always done business, it's going to work.
Right.
You had to get creative some way, shape, or form. And so for me, I would say the two biggest blessings from the events industry that really skill set that it taught me was being able to pivot, change, just be in a constant change of mind, like, right? That state of mind of being able to change constantly. And then second, which is just as important, if not more important, it's the relationship building. I feel that in the tourism industry, it's all about relationships, right?
Okay.
And I would say in a lot of industries, it's about relationships, but there's something magical about relationships in the tourism industry.
Oh, yeah.
And we are such a family. We travel all over the world together and we see each other at different events, whether it's Vitor in Madrid or WTM in London or IPW in the United States and all of these conventions. When you travel together, you build these amazing relationships. And again, now more than ever, I realize the impact of those relationships because, perfect example, you and I, we met, 15 years ago, and here we are 15 years later saying in the middle of a pandemic, how can we pivot? What can we do together?
Yeah.
What can we do different? And so I love that because we are in an industry where it's not an industry of people being selfish and greedy. I think it's an industry where we're a family,
Yeah.
and it's like, hey, my brother, how can I help you?
Yeah, and to add on to that relationship thing, what I've gathered over the years is why they're so powerful is the level of trust, because
Oh, absolutely.
everything that we do, and like you said, everything is so fast paced that you have to have a tremendous amount of trust in those people that you're relying on, because we don't get days to correct errors, we get hours, minutes.
Minutes.
We things have to change so fast.
Yeah.
With a group is coming to town for 5 days, so you don't have any time. They're there. There's no more prep.
Yep.
And if something is wrong, we got to fix it then.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because you talked about being all over the world and having relationships and stuff. Funny little quick story. So one of the projects that I got brought into, we were building out trade show type of environment, but we were doing it on St. Martin.
Okay.
So we containered everything over. We were, building out everything, and the project manager of that job, of the overall site, awesome guy. Immediately became friends. Where we still talk quite a bit, but about a year and a half later, like I didn't see him in person very much after that. A year and a half later, my wife and I were in Nicaragua, in the middle of nowhere, in San Juan del Sur, which is very, very south, and this remote beach, Playa Hermosa, and it was like a state park beach, so it wasn't open to the public. I mean, it's like $2 entry, but it keeps the pickpocketers away.
Yep.
So, literally in the middle of nowhere, and someone yelled out, "Richie!" And I ignored it because
You're like,
I'm in the
nobody
middle
knows
of
me.
nowhere. And my wife's like, hey, that guy's calling you. And I'm like, no way. Yells out again, look over. It's him. Efren and his family happen to be on that beach at the same time, at the same moment. And it's crazy because
If you would have planned it, it wouldn't have worked out so.
it was the funniest thing because, like, you know, when you go to a certain place in the world where you find yourself so removed, you're like, the last thing you would ever expect is to run into someone
Yeah,
that you know.
it's
And
so true.
it's one of these relationships in the events industry that has brought, you know, that type of it's so funny though.
I love it.
Yeah. So can you tell us some of the things that you have lined up for GTSE, you know, coming up? And actually, before we even get into that, I would love to tell everybody who's watching, because I know what your company does, but I would love you to explain to everybody what GTSE is all about.
Certainly. So I have to share a little bit about the background of how GTSE started so it all makes sense. So moved to New York, had an opportunity to work for Marriott International, Silverstein Properties, etc. And then I would really say the highlight of my career was for tourism was working for NYC and Company, which is the official tourism office for New York.
That's the equivalent of their CVB.
Correct.
That's the name of their CVB.
Yeah, correct. So dream job, if you've ever
Yeah.
seen the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, when Will Smith gets the job at the end of the movie and he's like just so happy.
Yeah.
That was me when
Yeah.
I got the role of Director of Tourism Development for Spain and Latin America.
Wow.
I'm like, I get to travel the world promoting the greatest city.
Yeah.
And I had 6 international offices that I was overseeing. So it was Spain, Spain, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, Mexico, and Brazil. And just absolutely amazing, you know, the experience, loving my job, thinking I'm going to retire from here, I'll become an entrepreneur and start my business one day, tied into this. But I was never looking to leave because I was so happy there. Like
Right.
I woke up every day and just like jumped out of bed.
Yeah, that's
My
great.
first day on the job was on a sales mission to Brazil.
Oh,
So
right.
it was like,
That's a beautiful thing when you're not working. It's
No.
your job is not really to
I'm
work.
like,
you're just-
really? You guys are paying me to do what I love? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So one day I get approached on LinkedIn that the Brooklyn Nets, the NBA's Brooklyn Nets team, were looking for a director of tourism, the global tourism development. And they reached out to me and I was like, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I love my job.
Right.
I can help you guys. You guys are members of NYC and Company, but I'm not looking to go anywhere. So it was almost like dating.
So
The
they
more
were-
I
they-
said no, they were like, yes, we want you.
So they were headhunting.
They were headhunting me
Okay.
for this role.
That's
And I was like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we want you more. So it was really funny, the dynamics of that. But really, I'm so glad that I got out of my comfort zone and pursued what was a huge task because it was the first time ever that they were going to put the resources to really focus on tourism development as an organization, BSE
Wow.
Global. So they manage and own the Brooklyn Nets, Barclays Center.
Okay.
I mean, it was a whole portfolio.
So it's not just getting global tourism eyes on the Brooklyn Nets. It's how
Barclays.
do we utilize the Barclays Center for anything and everything.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I was so hesitant, but I have to give a huge shout out to Fred Dixon, who is the president and CEO of NYC and Company, because as much as I loved my job, and he was like, Luisa, we don't want to see you go. Like, we really love working with you and having you on our team. But I'll never forget the words he said. He goes, Luisa, if I don't let you take this opportunity, I would be the most selfish person in the world.
Nah.
Because sports and tourism, it's what's going to boom. It's the next big thing to explode in tourism. If you look at everything else, it's saturated.
Yeah.
And tourism and sports, it's kind of like an unknown mystery.
Sure.
He goes, we're still going to work together.
Right.
Now you just get to promote around
Right,
the world.
Right. Right.
Because I was going from director of tourism development of Spain and Latin America at NYC and Company to global
To the-
at
everything
I was
else.
like, everything else. So I was like, this is great. So I got to travel to Australia, to Hong Kong, to London, to all these places.
You're like, I have a group of Tibetan monks coming in to watch a game at the.
And it just really, I took this role, and really what happened, talk about the events industry, is that I was at IPW. Well, let me backtrack. So the U.S. Travel Association flew to New York, and I had a chance to meet with them. And they shared with me that out of all of the sports teams in the United States, so all the leagues, NFL, NBA, MLB, etc., there were only about 5 teams that had a tourism development or tourism efforts happening.
Yeah.
But none of them had hired a person from the tourism industry to come and put this thing together.
Or like giving the task to someone within and just
Yes,
saying,
like
"Here,
figure it
this
out,
now."
learn
Yeah,
tourism.
Yeah.
And you were the first one to be pulled away from the tourism industry to help develop a tourism strategy and team for a professional team.
Right.
So they were like, we see what's happening, the success that you're having. Can you just come to IPW and tell all the teams like your experience of sports
so
and
now
tourism?
you need to be a trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I go and I give a speech, and I say to them, I know sports is super competitive. It's the nature of the beast.
Right.
But when you're looking at tourism, we are one. We are a family. And I need you guys to understand that we are not competing against each other.
Right.
Because if you have a group coming from Australia and they come to see the Brooklyn Nets and they have an amazing time, guess what they're going to do the next time they go to Miami? They're going to say, let's go see the Miami Heat.
Right,
We
right.
had so much fun when we went
Yeah.
to see the Nets or the Knicks or
Yeah.
whatever. So I think it clicked and it registered that we were not competing, that
Yeah.
if we wanted the world to come and see sports in the United States, we had to be one.
Yeah.
And back then it was 24% of international travelers wanted to come to the US to see a sporting event. That number grew to 37% back in 19. And that's because people, when they travel, they want an authentic experience, right?
Right.
So they finally got it, and I said to them, if you need any help, you have a sister in Brooklyn, like, I'm glad to help. And then the phone just never stopped ringing.
Wow.
Like, people were like, how do you contract, and how do you work with the travel tour operators, with the receptive tour operators, the wholesalers? Like, there was
Yeah.
so much. And then on the other hand, I'll never forget, I'm at WTM in London, and my client was like, you get it. You understand the tourism industry. Can you give us more access to more sports teams? And I was like,
I might be able to do that.
I might be cooking something.
So
And
at what point did you say, you know what, this is consuming so much of my time that I need to lay it out as a consultancy?
Yeah.
Was it immediately a consultant, or it was a lot of like, hey, I'm helping you, but then all of a sudden it's like, I can't do my job, so I need to monetize this in order to continue to grow you.
right.
Yeah.
So this was 2019 summertime. I go to this a convention called $1 Million Woman, all
Okay.
entrepreneurs. And I had a chance to meet with Julia Pimsleur and just share with her my idea of starting a company that would bridge the gap between sports and tourism. And she goes, well, the first thing I'm going to tell you is don't let perfection stop you, because perfection is the enemy of done.
I 100% agree with that.
She goes, just do a business plan and give it to me in a week. I'm like, woman, a week? I'm
Yeah.
a mother. I take care of my parents. I travel. I work. And you want a business plan in a week?
Rough draft.
She goes, just do it. Because if I give you a year, it's going to take you a year to do it. And she goes, and the second thing, build a strong advisory council. And she goes, I'd like to be your advisory council member.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I was just like tears,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, you believe in me. And so that's how it started. And really that was the goal, to have a company that would bridge the gap between sports and tourism. Told the Brooklyn Nets my idea. They were so happy. They were like, we want to become your first client. And we had a great launch January of 2020. I was on Univision as the first Latina in the United States to create a sport and tourism company, especially with sports. Thank you.
Air fist bump. That's
Especially when you think of sports, that it's such a male-dominated industry.
Absolutely, yeah.
And here you have a Latina that's like, okay, we're going to start a sports and tourism company
Yeah,
and
yeah.
change and disrupt and innovate and bridge the gap between these two
Yeah,
industries.
and it's interesting because you say that it's a disruptor in terms of the way that things were happening before, but the things that were happening before obviously weren't working if you said only 5% of the teams had a program in place. So clearly, it was something that needed to happen.
Correct.
And it was, you were providing something that was filling a void. And yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, I see huge opportunity there for you. I mean,
Thank you.
that's going to be incredible because as you show success for Brooklyn, the next team is going to know, and then the next team and the next team.
Yeah.
So and it's just the beginning of your empire.
Absolutely, and I say that everything happens for a reason because, of course, launching it January 20th, 2020, and then literally 3 months later, a
No
global
sports are
pandemic,
allowed to happen.
no sports, no travel,
No
and no
tourism, yeah.
entertainment. And I was like, really? It wasn't enough to be a Latina, the first Hispanic UN. Like, I had all these things that I already thought, I was like, wow, man, I'm really making, headlines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it. Because, of course, add a global pandemic to the mix. And how did you still survive? And how did you pivot? And so really, new news, that I'd love to share with you is kind of GTSE is continuing strong. We're focusing on obviously all of the contracting, speaking to all the teams, getting the teams to understand that we are their hub
Right.
for them to connect to the tourism industry,
Yeah.
right? And that's going to take some time,
Yeah.
but I couldn't sit here waiting for sports and tourism to come back.
Correct.
So I hired a coach and I said, I need to pivot and I need to expand my portfolio. I thought of what does Mark Cuban, Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, Elon Musk have in common? And it's that they all don't put their eggs in one basket. And
Right.
like Tony Robbins has like 78 companies.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I could have two. If
Yeah.
he has 78.
Yeah.
So we are.
I'll start with a little diversification.
Yeah, just a little. Two companies. And so they were really my inspiration to say, I'm going to expand. And I know that what I love to do is market brands and so and companies and bringing awareness. And so I guess officially on air, the name of my new company is Uconic.
Uconic. Okay.
We make you iconic, and even the name, I was like,
there you
okay,
go.
we make you iconic. What I need a name. We make you iconic. Ooh, Uconic, because I thought of like, look at all of these companies that are world-renowned names. They don't mean anything. So you think of like FedEx or Uber or Nike. Like
Yeah.
these are just words that are catchy that have 2 or 3 syllables, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Expo, right?
Yeah,
Like it's like you have these words that are just catchy. So I was like, Uconic. Amazon has 3 syllables, and they're like the
The be all end all.
So
Yeah.
so really, what Uconic is going to do, it's going to obviously work hand in hand with GTSE, but it allows us to expand our portfolio beyond sports and tourism and entertainment
Yeah.
by offering 3 things to our clients. One is digital marketing. So we know the world has gone digital. Like,
Right.
unfortunately, there are no networking events happening. And I
Right.
think people are realizing that now more than ever, having a strong digital presence is so important.
Definitely.
That's like your resume. That is your business card. That is like the business card exchange. It's sad, but people, like, they go to your website and right away they make a judgment on your company based
Yeah.
on your website.
And to that point, it's especially if someone is, needs their brand, Rob. Most important thing is getting all the good content out there so no one sees the stupid
Correct.
YouTube or Instagram post that you did 3 years ago,
Exactly.
just untimely. So yeah, it's definitely important to really dive into that digital marketing
Right, with
environment.
the concentration of website development, SEO optimizations, pay-per-clicks to get people to go into your website and learn about you.
Yeah.
And so have an amazing team of developers, designers, just people that really understand the space. The second thing that we do to help our clients is obviously PR. So we make your brand iconic by not only designing it, putting all of the elements, but actually sharing the story and creating newsworthy events around your brand. And then
So like going in, like creating activations and things like that. So
Correct.
obviously when people are allowed again, you're going to organize something that actually is,
Correct.
supports it.
Yeah, and so we had a client, the restroom kit, that literally have this amazing product where it's, you think of now with COVID, you have your hand sanitizers, you have your mask, you have all of these things to protect yourself, but when you go to a public restroom, what do? Like
Right.
everything in there is full of bacteria, and yet they have this little product called the restroom kit. And just to give you an idea in terms of newsworthy events, we actually partnered with the Mexican consulate in New York. They donated 500 kits to the Mexican consulate so that they could give out to the Mexican community, which was the hardest hit community with COVID-19. And then as a result, we actually had headline news. We were live streaming
Wow.
on Telemundo.
So
And
that's an activation.
talk about an activation,
Yes.
right? With millions of viewers getting to
Yeah.
see your product. And that's really the goal to help our clients there. So it's digital marketing, public relations, media relations. And then the third thing, which makes us a little different, is okay, I can help your brand become iconic. I can help share the message. But if the leadership is not aligned with the mission of how they really want the company to move forward, and the leadership is failing, a company will collapse.
Right,
And we
right.
see that time and time again. So I want to, Uconic is committed to helping brands become iconic while helping leaders find their passion to leave a legacy.
So
And if
you're-
we can unite that,
Yeah.
then
So
you
you're
have a
gonna have
magic.
a coaching
yes,
component.
a coaching component to
Because
help
I mean,
bring the whole thing together.
no, definitely, and that's kind of one of the passion projects that I've wanted to develop here in South Florida is basically a community of entrepreneurs to rely on each other for that very simple thing. Like, so to have people within different sectors. So you have somebody in a financial sector, you have somebody in a brand sector, somebody in a product sector who's successful. I just want to create a community that people can outreach to and just say, hey, I have a question, I have this, I have that, and so that's part of something I have that I'm trying to develop down here.
Awesome.
Because, it's you can have a great idea. I'll give you an example. If someone is a really great barber, doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna open a successful barber shop. So you can be great at a craft, but building an infrastructure and a business around it takes such it's a very arduous task, and there's lots of studying and and that is not natural.
Absolutely.
It is not natural to know what licensing you need for zoning for this or that, for what, so all of these things, the nuts and bolts, I just want to be able to have access, because we've done it a few times for different things and it's like, I've had to put a lot of the work in, to say, okay, what do I got to figure out? Where do I even go?
Right.
And even if it's something as simple as, hey, where do I find this? Okay, well, through Sunbiz, there's this link, there's that. So, just having a community that people can reach out to. So that's kind of a goal that I have
I love
for this year.
That's amazing.
putting
And if I can
together,
help
so.
you with that, by all
Thank you.
means.
Yeah,
'Cause
definitely.
I think finding a community of people to help you, and, as Tony Robbins always says, hire your weaknesses or connect with your weaknesses,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
I know that as an entrepreneur, when you're starting out, there's so many things you have to do from a legal standpoint, financial standpoint, development, marketing. There's just so much. And it's like, when you have the right community and you have a network of people that you can go to, and they can help relieve some of these items from your list, so that the barber doesn't have to worry about marketing his barber shop.
Right.
All he has to focus on is doing what he loves, and it's waking up and going to cut people's hair. And if
Right.
that, he can focus on that and put his heart and soul into that,
Yeah.
let his community or her community assist with all of the other items. And that's why for me, Uconic was so critical, because I said, if Uconic can help with the most important aspect of a business right now, I think, with the digital marketing aspect of it, then you can focus on what you love to do and not think about, like, who's going to design my web, and what is this SEO, and what do you mean pay per click, and wait, how do I get on Google? And it's just all these algorithms that Google
Right.
has. And so I couldn't agree more with you, of having a
Yeah.
community of companies and experts that can give you a hand and take you under their wing.
Right, exactly. And, well, where that, having mentors is the fastest way to success. Not, it's hard to do it all on your own. and knowledge just doesn't pop into your head. You know, you have to either have some bad experiences or learn from someone that did it right. So,
Exactly.
yeah, it's, so I think it would be great because there's a lot of people that, you know, I'm friends with like you who, like me, I don't know anything about marketing, but I can definitely build things and I can show out, you know, help products, you know, show their best.
I love it.
But it would be a person like you that I would need to rely on to get that message out, to get the people to see what I'm building for someone.
Exactly, and I feel the same way. I'm not the greatest builder, and I would come to you, and I think that's also what has allowed us to think about new strategies in COVID and of how we're gonna be able to assist our industry.
So how do people find GTSE and UConic? So,
Sure. So GTSE, it's www.globaltourismsports.com. UConic is going to be rolled out in the next few weeks at www.uconic with two Ks, so ukonik.com. And that website is, obviously, if we're going to be a website developer, we had to make sure that our website really will wow you when you come in. So we're taking our time to not like rush
But
it
not
to
too
get
much
it in.
time.
Not too much time. I told my team, goal is by February to have this website, and we're in the last stage of the building of the website. So you guys will be able to see that come around mid-February, should be ready to go. And then of course, LinkedIn, right? You can always find me on LinkedIn, Luisa Mendoza. That's where I think so much of the magic has happened, where I've been able to connect with so many people, is through LinkedIn. So you can always reach me on LinkedIn via, you know, Luisa
yeah.
Mendoza.
And just so no one, in case someone wants to write this down, I will have it in the body of our description. So
Fantastic.
we'll have people be able to reach you through there. So, yeah, it's funny because thinking backwards, talk about not taking too much time, you know, in some of my other businesses, you know, that's the one thing I tell the people that are doing social media posts and things like that. It's like get it out there. I would rather a great image and a great message be out there, and don't overthink the text, and don't overthink the, you know, all of the, it doesn't have to be a viral iconic post
Right.
or you know, or photo or, you know, something. It's like it's getting it out there because, you know, the message is more important than, you know, it's not an art contest. It's
Absolutely,
So it's-
absolutely.
yeah,
And
so-
I think there's a lot to be said about that, because even as you're
I
starting.
mean, we don't want to send crap,
No,
but
no, no, no. But even as you're starting out in that space, you may not have, people see the evolution that you're having,
Yeah.
right? The more you do something, you become better at it. So
Yeah.
if you're posting and you're blogging, the more you do it, you become better, and people see the difference, you know, like from the first post to like post, and it's like everything in life,
Yeah.
right? The first one versus like
Exactly.
100, it's
yeah,
day and night.
and I love that the timeline documentation of it too, because like for instance, so our company, you know, me being second generation, my father started this, and so there's so many great moments and photos and things that are gone, that are lost, you know, and so it's you know, I mean, prior to '95, he had worked for other companies, so there's a lot of history even prior to that, and it's like, you know, we would love to have all this like imagery documented and stuff, and it's like, you know, the stuff we've forgotten that was so
Yeah.
great. It's like it would be great if we had a Facebook and Instagram for 30 years ago. That was, you know, we could scroll through memory lane and
Yeah.
things. But it's like, you know, inbox, you move businesses 3 times, you know, from our growth, and it's like that stuff's gone. Who
Yeah.
knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? You know,
Yeah.
so it's that's what I really love going through this progress or this process now with a couple of the different businesses I work with, because it's like from the very inception day to the what we're doing then to a year later to 2 years later, and you know, so it's definitely a fun journey to have all this documentation. So so we already got everything for GTSE, UConic coming soon.
Yes.
We're gonna be
Woo-hoo.
looking for that. Also, we have to thank Expo Convention Contractors, our building, our platform, our studio, you know, and, you know, for most of my life. Also, our official beverage of the Behind the Drape show. Alvarado Hemp Vodka, coming soon to a market near you. And Green Night CBD. Today I brought out the Ageless Care Cream skincare. So this is got 100 milligrams of CBD in it in a skincare cream for anti-aging. So
Do I get one to?
So, yes. Yes, you do.
Thank you. Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'll give you a new one. That one was already been opened. So, so that's how I stay so young. So
I was gonna ask you, what's the trick?
But yeah, with that, thank you so much for being here today. It's always great catching up, but I love this opportunity because we get to really learn so much more about you, because these are obviously, we don't always have these types of conversations. We're usually talking about a project or a focus of something, and it's like for us to be able to really do a deep dive. It's been a pleasure, so thank you so much.
No, thank you, Rich. I really appreciate the opportunity and Expo, and again, this is a perfect proof of pivoting, and I just love to see how you're evolving and growing and not allowing circumstances to happen to you, but it's happening for you.
Oh, thank you.
So I wish you and your team just continued growth and success and good health and happiness. And I guess to end off, I'd like to quote Mr. Gatley, since we're talking about mentors and somebody that brought us together.
Yeah.
You know, I always said to him, Mr. Gatley, how can I ever repay you for everything you've done to help me? Because he would just go above and beyond, and he would say to me 3 things, Luisa, just remember these 3 things. 1, never forget where you came from and those that have helped you along the way. So that's you. 2nd, he goes, remember to pay it forward. Don't just say thank you, but go out there and help others when you have the opportunity. And then he said, 3, one day, if I need a job, will you hire me as a security guard? I'm like, what? I'm a high school intern. You're the GM. He goes, life can do many turns and twists, and we've seen that. So I leave you guys with those beautiful words from my mentor that are engraved in my heart, and who brought us together, because that's how we met 15 years plus ago. But again, just thank you for the opportunity. So